Hello and welcome to another spooky episode of Nerd Central. I'm your host, Shannon Clement, and this week's our Halloween special. We are going to get you all ready for the scariest holiday of the year. We have our next installments of Dragon Corner, Heart of the Cards, Look Back, and Dead on Arrival. Plus, we battle to see who the better hunter is, a Xenomorph from the Alien franchise or the Predator from the franchise of the same name. But first, let's talk about the news of the week. Grimm is making a comeback, but not in the way you'd think it is. NBC is developing a spin-off with a female Grimm in the lead role. This new series will have characters returning from the 6th season, 120-episode series that ended just last year, while introducing new characters, new dangers, and new mysteries for the characters to solve. No news yet on any casting for the lead or when the series will begin airing, but when we find out, we will be sure to pass that information off to you guys. Speaking of new shows, the Property Brothers are getting a scripted show on Fox. For those of you who don't know who the Property Brothers are, Jonathan and Drew Scott are the stars of multiple shows on HGTV, including Brother vs. Brother and Property Brothers at Home. The series will be called It Takes Two and will follow two twin brothers as they join forces to start a real estate business. This series is still in the development, so again, we don't know when it will be airing, but when we know, you'll know. In other news, RWBY got a first trailer for its 6th season last week. The Western-developed anime-style series follows Ruby, Weiss, Flake, and Yang as Team RWBY as they must reunite to face a threat only all four can defeat. Along with the series debuting later this week, Fandom Events will have the first episode exclusively in theaters for one night on the 25th. The series will hit Rooster Teeth's website on the 27th. And with that, it's time for Dragon Corner and Heart of the Cards. Take it away, you two.
Hello and welcome back to Dragon Corner. Last week we briefly touched on some Dragon Ball spin-offs, so I figured the time has finally come to cover the elephant in the room, Broly. Broly is the name of the main adversary in the upcoming Dragon Ball Super film, as well as the titular character. But this isn't the first time we've heard the name. Broly is actually a fan-favorite character in the Dragon Ball community. His first incarnation appeared in the 1993 film, Dragon Ball Z Broly, the Legendary Super Saiyan. Remember that phrase, the Legendary Super Saiyan? It refers to a prophecy that we assumed Goku fulfilled on planet Namek. We were always led to believe that only one Super Saiyan appears every 1,000 years, but we've since seen several. The 8th Dragon Ball Z film, and the 11th Dragon Ball film overall, explores this concept and posits the theory that simply transforming into a Super Saiyan does not fulfill the prophecy. The Legendary Super Saiyan is a genetic anomaly, a rare trait that only emerges every 1,000 years. Vegeta long assumed that he was destined to be the legendary Super Saiyan due to his royal heritage and Saiyan elite bloodline, while Goku is considered a low-level warrior, genetic garbage, hence his identical appearance to his father and youngest son. While legendary Saiyans have access to the classic blonde Super Saiyan, they are more often seen in their berserker state, which features hair with a greenish tint and blank white eyes. If the legendary form seems familiar to you, it's because we've seen it briefly before. During the Tournament of Power arc of Dragon Ball Super, Toei Animation suggested a Universe 6 counterpart to the original Broly design, Kale. Kale proves to be gentle and timid, as opposed to OG Broly's fractured mental state, and further contrasts herself by mastering her Berserk form, and even advancing that power to Legendary Super Saiyan 2. She also has a support net, her best friend and mentor Caulifla, whom she affectionately refers to as Sis. When they fuse into Kefla, they seem to retain the legendary status. In the original film, Broly's father, Paragus, appears and approaches Vegeta with the offer of a new planet to rule. Unbeknownst to our heroes, Broly had been sentenced to death shortly before the Saiyan's destruction due to his immense power level. Paragus, seeking revenge on the royal family, plans to kill Vegeta via an impending comet. But what's more, he's looking for a way out. After a troubling childhood and an out-of-control teenage phase, adult Broly is now too powerful to be allowed to live. Broly has been driven mad by his attempted assassination, his uncontrollable power, and baby Kakarot's nighttime tantrums. He's crazy because Goku cried too much. At this point, we should take the time to discuss the status of Dragon Ball films. Despite what some fans might claim, there is no evidence to suggest that the events depicted in any Dragon Ball film actually happened. This is especially obvious in the Dragon Ball films Curse of the Blood Rubies, Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle, Mystical Adventure, and Path to Power, which are modified retellings of the original story, and the Dragon Ball Z films Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, which were considered canon until they were retold in the first two story arcs of Dragon Ball Super. Less obvious examples of inconsistencies include Fusion Reborn, in which Vegeta and Goku are simultaneously dead, which has never happened, and Lord Slug, which premiered the Super Saiyan form early, without series creator Akira Toriyama's design notes. So far, there's no reason to assume that the upcoming film will feature any such inconsistencies, so many fans are considering it to be the first quote-unquote canon film until proven otherwise. Although it's worth noting that there are hints that the series may return from hiatus in 2019. With the original script for the film reportedly containing up to 3 hours of content, the phrase, "movies aren't canon," may soon hold relevance once again. That being said, Dragon Ball Super Broly seems to be staying true to the main series, which means that the Broly we'll be seeing in the coming months is an entirely new interpretation of the character than the original trilogy gave us. While the original Broly designs were drawn by Toriyama, he had very little involvement with the original Dragon Ball films or anime in general. In contrast, this film features both designs and story by Toriyama. Obvious visual clues include Old Man Paragus, the less gaudy appearance of the mind control gear he uses to control Broly, and the inclusion of Broly's wrathful form, as opposed to the suppressed Super Saiyan form he took in the original incarnation. Notable story changes include making Broly a more fleshed out character, making Paragus a tragic father rather than a villain, and integrating the Frieza Force into the story. Broly's power level has also been increased accordingly, making him stronger than Jiren, a Superman allegory from Universe 11 that was said to be the only mortal in the multiverse capable of besting a god. And unlike its recent predecessors, this film will send the cast on yet another hunt for the Dragon Balls. And we'll talk about that next time on Dragon Corner.
Hello and welcome to Nerd Central's Heart of the Cards with your host Bradley Justice. I will be taking a deep dive into the anime juggernaut that is Yu-Gi-Oh! Or what I like to call the Friendship Show.
Your friend is gone.
I don't think so.
Then make your move. Not that it matters. Neither one of your monsters is powerful enough to defeat my alligator sword.
Hey, Joey! Snap out of it! We're your friends, remember?
Taya's right! I have an idea! What is it?
I may have come up with a way to save Joey and get us out of this mess.
What's that?
Well, it just came to me when Taya reminded us of our friendship.
Season 5 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the final season of the original series. It was an interesting, wild, and fun journey. The season starts off with Kaiba holding a tournament at his recently opened theme park called Kaiba Land, with almost every ride and attraction named or designed to match his favorite card, Blue Eyes White Dragon. With the winner of the tournament facing Yugi at the end, one mystery dueler named Siegfried is trying to ruin Kaiba's fun by hacking and even challenging Kaiba to a duel. He claims Kaiba stole his idea of a holographic dueling technology. The second part of the season, also known as the final arc, is where the Pharaoh battles Yami Bakura to try and save the world, while Yugi and the crew try to figure out what the Pharaoh's real name is. We learn what the all-powerful beast Zork the Dark One looks like and can do after 4 seasons of Bakura teasing the monster. After the nameless pharaoh finally learns his name, he calls it out and conquers Zork the Dark One, saving mankind.
It's my name!
Pharaoh? Can you read the symbols?
Yeah, do you know what your name is?
Yes, my ancient name has been revealed. I am King Atem!
The season then ends when Yugi facing Atem being able to finally lay the spirit of the pharaoh to rest by beating him. I enjoyed this season. The first arc was okay. It was mainly filler, so it didn't draw much of my attention, even though I really did enjoy seeing Grandpa Moto duel Joey in Kaiba's tournament. The second half of the season was outstanding. We got to witness the origins of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, Dark Magician, and Dark Magician Girl, as well as why the Spirit of the Ring is evil, and most of the season didn't even involve dueling. It was just straight up monster versus monster. It was a change that I didn't know I needed. Tune into next week's episode as you get to witness Yu-Gi-Oh! With a huge graphic update. This has been Heart of the Cards with Bradley Justice. Stay tuned for more Nerd Central.
Welcome back to Nerd Central, and you just watched the newest installments of Dragon Corner and Heart of the Cards. Some more news for you guys. With new shows getting orders, it's time to say goodbye to some of our favorites. Netflix hit show Orange is the New Black is coming to a close. The series started all the way back in 2011, but sadly, the ladies of Lynchfield Prison have to be released from prison at some point. Netflix will drop all of the 7th and final season of the show sometime in 2019. In horror movie news, the Conjuring franchise is getting another film, and they are bringing in some old familiar faces back for the new installment. Annabelle 3 is officially happening. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are returning as married paranormal investigators. Ed and Lorraine Warren and Gary Daberman, writer of the first 2 Annabelle films, will step behind the camera and direct the third one. Annabelle 3 is scheduled to release on July 3rd, 2019. Now let's take it to the next installments of Look Back and Dead on Arrival. What do you have for us this week, guys?
Hello, and welcome to Look Back, a retrospective on shows that I used to love, the shows that I love in the present day. I'm Mikey, and I think we can all agree that middle school is an awkward time for all of us. And honestly, we all needed some tips. This is Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. With the tagline, "Your results may vary," Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide drops the viewer into James K. Polk Middle School, full of bullies, evil teachers, gross school lunches, and Ned Bigby, the kid with a guide that will help us survive school. From not trying to get sick, choosing the right school club, winning the spelling bee, to choosing love interest, Ned's guide has you covered. And with his best friends Cookie and Mose, along with a slew of other characters, school should not be an issue. For this show, each episode goes into another situation where tips are needed. These mainly focus on Ned, but every so often, they spur another direction. Overall though, 3 things are for certain. Bullies want to torture you, popular kids want to use you, and teachers are just plain evil. Speaking of the teachers, the adults in the show are portrayed from the students' point of view, so it really bases on their opinions. From the evil Mr. Sweeney, the caring Mr. Wright, the always watching Vice Principal Krubbs, and the helpful to the students and not his job, Janitor Gordy, we never get to see much of their backstories, because it's from the students' point of view, and students at this level don't think about what their teachers do outside of school. Overall though, all these characters combine into one great show, and the tensions and love and everything else just works. Now, for a Nickelodeon series, it's shocking to hear that there's no video games, no toys, nothing like that. But then again, this show is more for teenagers, not little kids. And Nickelodeon doesn't think teenagers are gonna buy games with their logos on it. So it's just a TV show, but honestly, that's probably for the best. But I had to say something. After watching the show again for the first time in years, I forgot how good the show was. And now, it's my favorite Nickelodeon show of all time. And while I understand they didn't want to make a high school version of the show, I still wish the show was on in some capacity today. Next week, we're going back to cartoons, except this time on a different network. A Cartoon Network. Stay tuned to Nerd Central.
Hello and welcome to Dead on Arrival, where shows of 1 season or less get analyzed by me, the lovely Cody Nance. Now I know that drugs are bad, okay, but what if one pill gave you access to 100% of your brain, effectively making you the smartest person in the world? This was the plot of Bradley Cooper's Limitless. But we don't look at movies here. We look at shows, leading us to Limitless the series. Unlike Constantine, Limitless isn't a reimagining of the movie. Instead, it's a direct continuation, even having multiple guest appearances from Bradley Cooper himself. The show follows a loser named Brian who takes the drug known as NZT. NZT gives you access to 100% of your brain. So, with Brian's new knowledge, power, and smarts, he becomes a consultant for the FBI. The only problem is that NZT side effects can be very deadly, as can withdrawal symptoms. So in order to not die, Brian has to do little side missions for Bradley Cooper, because he is the only one who knows how to make a vaccine that counters the NZT side effects. Tonally, while the movie was kinda dark and dramatic and a little bit bland, the show is extremely fun to watch. It almost mimics an Edgar Wright film in style, with great voiceovers, scene transitions, and effect editing. This is going to sound bad, but the show actually makes you want to take this drug through its style alone. While off of NZT, everything is bland and grayish. Brian always looks like he's going through the worst hangover of his life, and the show begins to become every other CBS cop drama. Luckily, this never lasts long, because as soon as NZT is popped, every color brightens, Brian's eyes widen like he just drank 5 Red Bulls, and the style returns. Then, some comedy ensues. Why was Limitless canceled? Well, despite the show's originality, brilliance, and positive ratings, according to CBS president Glenn Geller, it just wasn't connecting with people, and they needed an extra time slot for new CBS shows. Well, Mr. Glenn, Limitless certainly connected with me, and many others. And those new shows? They were kinda really bad. But I guess there's nothing I can really do about it. So, from Dead on Arrival on Nerd Central, this is Cody Nance saying, what does a cat, a spaceship, and Jack Black have to do with terrorism?
Thanks, guys. There's more news coming out from the Arrowverse mega crossover slated to air in December. Superman has returned and he is wearing a new suit. Stephen Amell, Arrow in the Universe, went onto Twitter and tweeted a picture of Grant Gustin, the Flash himself. In Tyler Hoechlin's Superman on set, and Hoechlin was sporting a black Superman suit. This suit was featured in the Death of Superman comic arc from the 90s. It is unclear if that storyline will play a factor in the crossover event, but we will just have to wait until the crossover begins with The Flash on December 9th. That's going to do it for this week's Nerd Central. Nerd Showdown is next. You can get all caught up on all of the previous episodes on the KNWT YouTube page. Also, follow KNWT on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and follow Nerd Central on Twitter at nerd_central_TV. The battle to see who is the better hunter between the Xenomorph and the Predator will commence after the break. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome to Nerd Showdown, the part of Nerd Central where we battle it out on a particular topic we have no business debating. I'm your host Devin Van Zant, and with Halloween just around the corner, we ask the question, who is the better hunter? The Xenomorph from the Alien franchise or the Predator from the Predator franchise? Keep in mind, both of these characters kill their prey in very gruesome ways, so this is your warning that this showdown will contain graphic content. You have been warned. With me today, I have Northwest Missourian reporter James Christensen and the creator of Dead on Arrival, Cody Nance. James, why don't you start us off? Why do you believe the Xenomorph is the better killer?
Alrighty, so my favorite creature of all time, the Xenomorph, it takes the best out of anyone it infects. So like, for example, if that facehugger would wrap around me, it would be like, it would take the best qualities of a human and go after it. If it wrapped around a dog, it would be a quadruped. If it was aquatic, it would swim. It adapts to the person it is wrapping around and transforming. Also, the entire idea of just like this creature bursting out of your chest, it's like, that's the ultimate way to kill someone. Like, it's like, oh no, this creature that I thought was gonna kill me that wrapped around my face is dead. It's like, oh, I'm fine now. It's like, ah! It's like, oh, that's an interesting way to go. And plus with the Xenomorph, they have no regard for life. It's like, okay, you're in the way, you're gonna die. You already know that right now. It's like, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna maim you, I'm gonna rip you in half, I'm gonna use my second jaw to bite into your skull or something. It is the most terrifying and gruesome kills I have ever seen, and it also just shows that they have no regard for life whatsoever aside from their fellow Xenomorphs. It's like, oh, you're not a Xenomorph. I'm going to like stick my spine tail through your back, lift you up, and then rip you in half.
The Predator is the ultimate hunter through strategy and cold calculations. He has a plan. He knows what he's going to do to each of his victims. And he just wants the respect of being able to hunt the deadliest prey imaginable. He has the encloaking, which is very useful against all manners of creature, obviously. His visor is set to heat vision, and he also even has a specific setting on his visor that adapts to Xenomorph thermal.
Well, first of all, its sportsmanship is its biggest weakness, because if you look at the first film, all Schwarzenegger had to do was cover himself in mud and build some Home Alone traps, and it's like, oh, you're gonna actually not try and fight me. I'm gonna take off the gun, I'm gonna get rid of my weapons, and then I'm gonna get crushed under a giant log and then blow myself up because I got defeated. And then if you look in the second film, Danny Glover literally cuts off his arm and he tries to blow himself up. It's like, seriously? You have a singular cut on your arm. Why are you trying to blow yourself up already? Their sportsmanship is their biggest weakness. I mean, when Danny Glover kills that Predator in Predators 2, the other Predators on the ship could have killed him. But no, he killed one of us. We're gonna give him an old gun and let him go. It's like, what the hell?
They have a weakness to female characters. So if my Predator is female, that alien's going down. And the alien's attack range is very limited. He only has his tail and his head bite, and his claws, of course. Everything is close ranged. So he has to assume that he's going to get close enough to affect the Predator before he can actually take him down.
And even if they are shot, the acid blood probably kills the person that shot them, because the acid blood literally melts people's flesh. We've seen that multiple times, especially in Aliens with the Marines, and in Alien Resurrection with all those Marines once again, and the mercenaries.
It doesn't have to get close. It can shoot the shoulder cannon very far, and the alien blood will not splatter onto it. It can use the smart disc, it'll just go right through.
That is going to do it for this week's Showdown, and the winner is Cody. You can head to Nerd Central's Twitter to show your support for this week's Showdown. Nerdmageddon is coming up next. You can check out the Missourian every Thursday during Student Media Day. See you next week on Nerd Central.